It begins in the Meiji era, year 30, filled with supernatural beings, oni, yokai, and monsters of darkness that, under the push of westernization, have their populations decimated under something called the Great Purge. Supernatural creatures have been pushed to the brink of extinction. Tsugaru Shinichi, the Oni Slayer, a half-Oni, half-human whose job is to perform for crowds, starts fighting an Oni in a circus to entertain the crowd. The Oni jumps and is about to hit Tsugaru, but he dodges it, and Oni falls to the ground, which makes Tsugaru win the fight, and all the crowd shouts joyfully, hailing him. He leaves the circus and enters the dressing room to clean up himself. He meets a man inside who reminds him that he's also one of the monsters, so he should not feel important. A freak with a long neck uses her ability to peep at the men discussing. The older man screams at her for looking at him in a mannerless way, and asks her to get ready for the stage. Shugaru leaves the room and starts to talk to himself as he walks away. He enters his room and drinks his beer, but to his utmost surprise, that's the last one. Shugaru steps out to get his beer and bumps into some children. They all run away in fear, seeing his face. He stops at a man's shop and gets his beer. The man asks him to go see a doctor, thinking he has venereal disease, but Shugaru simply touches the line on his face, and he walks away without saying a word. On his way, he sees a lot of people who gather to kill a cat which they claim to be Ayakashi, a monster. One of the men asks Tsugaru to get rid of the monster, but he tells them that it's just a cat and says he can't kill it. The cat runs away, and they all leave angrily too. Tsugaru continues to perform for the crowds. One day, a girl steps out of the house and Tsugaru stands outside of the house unknown to the girl. He moves closer to the girl and tries to touch the bird cage she's carrying. Immediately, she unwraps the weapon that she held behind her, revealing it to be a gun that has a blade attached to it. The maid points it at him and then begins combat with Tsugaru. As they fight, he notices the woman to be quite skilled enough to match him at times. Suddenly, he takes the fight seriously and easily overpowers her. Not until then before she apologized for attacking him, which is of course due to him trying to touch the birdcage. He asks who the girl is, and she says she's Shizuku. She tells Tsugaru that he will die soon. Since he's using his power at the theater every day, he will be consumed by the Oni and won't be long before he dies. Shizuku tells him that she's there to strike a deal with him, saying that she will extend his life if he promises to grant her wish. She moves closer to him and opens the cage. Immediately, Tsugaru is scared speechless by the sight of a head inside the cage. The head calls herself Aya Rindo, the mistress of Shizuku, and tells Tsugaru to kill her. Aya says she's a human, not a creature, and that her immortality won't allow her to grow old. Since 947, she has been 14 years and 3 months old. She says some people took the rest of her body about 6 months ago and can't grow another body because she's helpless against Oni since wounds caused by an Oni don't heal quickly, which means she will die eventually. Aya describes the man who slays her and says he's an Oni hybrid, an elderly man who uses a cane and has a hoarse voice, and not from the country. As they talk, people start entering the game house. Tsugaru tells Aya that they should leave where they're immediately to not make Aya part of the show. While they're walking, Tsugaru starts to imagine how he's going to die and what will kill him, and he says since Aya promises to extend his lifespan, he has nothing to worry about. Aya asks him if his life is a joke to him, and he replies that his performance involves killing monsters entertainingly, so it makes sense that he takes himself out in a similar way. On their way walking, Aya asks Tsugaru if he will kill her, and he says that she should not rush to her death. She says she's far past due and says what's the point of living when she has been reduced to just head, so she's not rushing. Aya says he's the only one that can kill her, but Tsugaru declines it. Aya tells him that if he doesn't kill her now, then he will also die shortly. Tsugaru talks with confidence that Aya will increase his lifespan and that he will not kill her. Tsugaru asks Aya where the people who took away her body are, and she says they might probably be in Europe. He asks Aya to go after them and get her body back. He also urges Shizuku if she wants her mistress to die, and the maid says that she's only following orders, since her feelings don't matter. Tsugaru tells Aya that it seems like the same people who took her body also took his humanity. He asks if his cane has the letter M engraved on it, and Aya affirms. Then Tsugaru says he's the one who captured him. Tsugaru tells Aya that since she has the brain to get the man, he has the body to carry her there and says they should go to Europe together. The girls agree, so Tsugaru asks Aya how she will extend his lifespan. Aya tells him he just needs to consume a part of her, not her eyes, ears, or brain, but the one she can spare. The two decide to seal the deal with a kiss. A vampire lord called Lord Jean Duché Godard is seen in the bush aiming at an antelope. He shoots the antelope, but it escapes. He then runs after the antelope and kills kills it. With the antelope on his shoulder, he returns to his son Raoul, and they head home. He tells his son that they've treated them harshly ever since Count Dracula was taken out, so they all must get along with humanity from now on, whether they like it or not. In their mansion, Raoul tells his father to get the weapon they took from a hunter out of their storage room and asks why they have to keep something so dangerous in their house. His father declines and says that rather than falling into another hunter's hand, he will make sure it's locked up so Charlotte doesn't play with it. On getting to the storage room, he noticed that the lock on the door had been broken, and it appeared that they had an intruder. Godard sees a silver stake on the floor and immediately notices that it's their blood that's on it. He rushes out and asks Raoul to stay behind him and follow him. He calls out on his son, Claude, and his wife Hannah. His son answers him and asks what the matter is. Godard asks him if anything happens in the mansion. Alfred, his butler, runs to him on hearing his shouts, and Godard tells him that it looks like an intruder enters the house, but Alfred says he did not notice anything. Godard asks about his other family too. He runs upstairs and finds his wife Hannah in the pool of her blood, brutally murdered with a silver stake. Reporters buzz around Godard in the morning, desperate for news. One of them says what happens is good, and then Annie, a 14-year-old girl, rushes out from the crowd and says Lord Godard signed a written oath that he won't drink human blood. Another man screams at her that vampires can't be trusted. Lord Godard steps out of the house and they all rush to him asking him what happened. He then replies to only Annie that the incident is caused by someone discriminating against vampires, and in order to get to the bottom of it, he's going to hire a specific detective who has arrived from the east, which is Chuguru and Aya. Annie gets frightened after hearing about the people that will be coming. Chuguru, Aya, and Shizuku come down from their chariot, and the driver starts to argue with them about his payment. Chuguru tells the driver to get his payment from Lord Godard. The driver runs to Lord Godard to ask for his money. Chuguru tells Lord Godard that he'd like the driver to drive them back, so he should rest in the house, and Lord Godard agrees. Chuguru introduces himself as the cage carrier who comes from Japan. Lord Godard also introduces himself and his sons. Chuguru then tells Lord Godard that he's just an apprentice and that Aya is his boss. Aya says that she did not remember making him her apprentice, but just an assistant. Aya tells Godard not to worry, that she will track down who kills his wife. Godard then asks Chuguru where Aya is, and she opens the cage. Everyone becomes shocked, and Aya introduces herself as a detective. She then asks Godard to tell her about how he finds the body. After talking about Godard's family, which includes Giselle and Alfred, two human servants, Godard discusses Hannah herself, including her love for fixing things up. Given vampiric bodies tend to disintegrate faster than humans, they only have a photo of the corpse to go on. Looking at it, Aya deduces that it was indeed a stake that killed her. She bled less from the left instead of the right side of her chest, and she also seems to have been sleeping peacefully at the time, given the lack of surprise with her expression. The chair she's found in seems to have no discernible piercing marks though, and her hands and feet were unharmed, despite the potential presence of holy water thrown about after the murder. Some evidence is left behind though, coming in the form of a dusty, empty bottle. There's blood on the lid, and as for the silver stake, touching silver is prone to burn and singe vampire skin. If any vampire is burnt in that way, the regenerative powers fail to work, and it takes around a week or so to heal entirely. Only Alfred and Godard have keys to the storage room where the stake has been returned to. There's enough evidence and incriminating details left behind to question the notion of whether it is someone outside the mansion. But who could it be? Little Lottie shows up behind Chuguru while he's trying to count out Aya's deductions. As he turns to face the girl, she gets spooked and hurries away. After the credits, an intriguing scene sees a vampire hunter enter the scene sporting a crossbow. Back in the mansion, it's dinner time and Chuguru is happily eating with the family. Aya and Shizuku keep their eyes on everyone, trying to find out anyone acting outside the ordinary. While there are questions around Aya's investigative keen eye, the driver asks Aya how she knows a lot about him and his wife. She starts analyzing the driver's clothes, which in turn makes her look at him and says his facial hair is unkempt, but the collar of his shirt is clean and some of the buttons have been replaced, which shows that his wife regularly irons and mends it. She goes on and on about him and concludes that he hasn't drunk alcohol for a week because someone asked him to stop. The rest of the family asks Godard if he trusts Chuguru and Aya, and Godard says yes. Aya gets back to business and asks about the incident that happened. Godard explains that after dinner, his wife left to rest in her room for a bit. He went up to study during this time and started chatting to Claude. Nobody seemed to have seen Hannah after dinner. Charlotte tagged along with Godard and Claude and played with her dolls, and then they came down to the main atrium, where he and Lottie parted ways with Claude. Godard heads out to hunt, which is part of his usual routine on that day at that house, while Lottie is then with Giselle. Godard claims that nothing seemed to be amiss in the storage room during the evening, but it could well be that someone had taken something at that time. Raoul, As we know, 30 minutes after he finished eating, they all flare up and say how Aya thinks one of them kills Hannah. Raul says before going out to hunt he was in his room too, but he didn't seem to hear anything. Giselle, the maid, says she was cleaning up the kitchen and then went to the laundry room at 1 a.m. This is what she does every day, and as Lottie seemed bored at the time, she decided to sing some songs to her while doing the laundry. She went to the bathroom once during that time, where Lottie would have been on her own, but that's all. Alfred says he went down to the office in the basement and was adjusting Godard's schedule, but other than that, he did nothing. He was by himself this whole time and didn't hear any noises. Curiously, Claude closes his eyes and shakes his head as Alfred says this, which is rather suspect. After hearing everyone's testimonies, Aya admits she's narrowed the suspects down to 2 people, Alfred and Claude. As she says this, Lottie spills her drink and rushes out of the room crying. With the dinner over, Claude catches up with Aya and Chuguru, pointing out that he didn't kill his mother and would happily snap Chuguru's neck if he gets the chance. When he leaves, Aya points out that she was paying attention to the hands of all the vamps at dinner, and they seem clean of cuts or burns. Remember, the silver stake leaves burn marks that don't heal for a while, so that could well mean that Alfred or Giselle is responsible. Chuguru and Aya head out with Godard to look deeper into the forest, where Godard points out that the way his wife was killed seems to hint at it being a vampire hunter responsible. Is this a deflection? Well, right now, Aya is keeping her options open. While they discuss the Oni and the Immortal in the forest, a hunter suddenly smacks a crossbow bolt right into Godard's neck. He's not phased though, and vows to strike fear in the man's heart. Godard immediately pins the guy down to the ground and demands answers, believing he killed his wife. But as he's just arrived in town now, according to Aya, he doesn't think it's possible. The hunter's items show he was in Berlin 3 days back, so there's no way he killed Hannah. His name is Joseph, and he's here to avenge Hugo's death. After hearing the man's account of everything, Aya decides to let him go, believing he's learned his lesson, and they no longer need to wander around the forest. They're going to go back to the mansion and crack this case once and for all. Inside Lord Godard's mansion, everyone gathers as Aya Rindo tells them that one of them is Hannah's murderer. Aya Rindo says after she has examined the crime scene, she's left with few problems. Firstly, both witnesses are lying, which means they colluded in the murder. Aya says the murder must have taken place around 1 a.m. She suspects the murderer to have hit the silver stake with a hammer and placed something in between so it wouldn't make a sound. Aya says since there is lots of blood on the murder coat, it proves that when Hannah was killed with the stake, there was nothing to get in the way of the blood splatter. The Immortal says the last of her puzzle is that the murderer held the silver stake in his hands and stabbed Hannah, which was why no one heard any noise. Aya says the reason the murderer can't use a hammer on the stake is because it will break the stake. This means the murder weapon is not the silver stake, but a stake made from something else. Lord Godard asks what she meant by that, and she says what he saw is a silver stake covered in blood. She says the stake the murderer used is a stake frail enough to break if it were hit by a hammer. Aya Rindo says the last of her puzzle is the bottle left at the scene of the murder. She says the bottle looks dusty, but after cleaning its outer part, it shows the bottle is dirty inside. She says it means the murderer left the bottle behind to make it look like they splashed holy water around. She says, however, there were definite traces of holy water on Hannah's body. She says, where did the holy water come from since the victim is a vampire? Aya Rindo says the murderer froze holy water, creating a stake made out of ice. She says the murderer stabbed Hannah with the ice stake while she was sleeping on her armchair. The blood splashed and the holy water stake melted immediately from the high temperature. The melting holy water soaked her clothes and caused her skin to burn. She analyzes the whole situation as the murderer has carried out his plans. She says the only thing she doesn't understand is why the murderer uses this method. She says the murderer uses this method because he's only trying to create an alibi. Aya Rindo says to solve this case, there are 5 things the murderer must not have. He must not have an alibi for the actual period when the murder takes place. He must be someone they originally think is unable to commit the crime due to his arranged alibi between the time of the murder. Thirdly, the murderer must have had time to move around during the later time. The murderer must be someone strong enough to break a lock and stab someone with a thick stake. Lastly, the person must be skilled enough to have murdered without a vampire noticing him. Aya Rindo says the only ones who do not have an alibi between the time of the murder are the 2 servants and Raoul. She says of the 3 of them, it's only Giselle and Raoul who fulfill the second condition. She says these 2 also fulfill the third condition. Aya Rindo says the only one who can carry out the 4th and 5th conditions is Raoul. He stands up from his chair and says there is no way he could have done that. She says Raoul can't stage the silver stake because his hands will get burnt. She says there is no one in the house whose hands show signs of having burns. After analyzing all these possibilities, Raoul charges Aya and tries to attack her, but Chuguru grabs his hand. He instructs Shizuku to take care of Aya so that he will handle Raoul. Chuguru kicks Raoul out through the window. Inside the house, Aya tells Lord Godard how Raoul planned the whole thing and how he meets Hugo the hunter. She tells Lord Godard that Raoul's motive is because he's against being a human alibi. She says if he needs proof, he will find a few in Raoul's room. Outside the house, Raoul says all his siblings do everything their father tells them. He says he did what he did because he wants their father to have a change of heart towards humans. Raoul says he will have to kill them all. He charges at Suguru, but he repels and hits him through the wall. Raoul gets angry and charges at Suguru, but he evades all the attacks. Suguru beats him till he becomes lifeless. Suguru walks into the house and tells Aya that he is done with the job. Shizuku tells Lord Godard that their job is done and they have to leave. Outside the mansion, Aya tells Lord Godard about a man in his early 70s who has a prosthetic leg and carries a black cane. Lord Godard says the man visited him a few days ago and told him to address him as a professor. Aya Rindo says he's the man who has the rest of her body. A man is seen tied to a chair, and Arsène Lupin calls him Eric and asks him how he's doing. Eric asks him how he knows his name. Arsène Lupin tells him about his background and how he was born with white hair and a disfigured face. He continues to tell him about where he lives and every information he has gathered about him. He tells him about how he's popularly known as Phantom of the Opera. Eric asks about the place, and the man says he calls the place Les Gilles Crus. Phantom asks why Lupin has kidnapped him. He says he has a job he wants him to do for him in London. Phantom asks him what he plans to steal. The man says the penultimate night from Phileas Fogg's mansion. A train arrives at the train station, and a voice talks about Arsène Lupin, a famous thief from France, and how he sent a warning letter to Phileas Fogg's mansion. Annie gets a copy of the newspaper and reads about how every detective wants to be hired to foil Lupin. At Albert Horn Walking Stick Shop, the waiter asks Chuguru if he would like to order anything, but he says it's Aya who wants to place an order. Shizuku tells Aya that the list of clients is stored in the drawers. The waiter asks who they're talking to. He exclaims at the sight of Aya. Chugari carries the bird cage as he walks along the street with Shizuku. They were suddenly stopped by two men who asked them to give him the list they took from Horn. Chuguru gets prepared to fight when the police arrive and arrest them all. At Fogg's mansion, a chariot arrives and they all get down from the chariot as Annie spots Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, the cage user, and Miss Aya Rindo. Inside the mansion, a man welcomes them and introduces himself as Passepartout, the family butler. After observing the building, Sherlock asks how Lupin plans to infiltrate the building. Eric walks into a room and tells Lupin that he has gone to the Fogg's mansion and it has been closed to the public and has tightened their security. Lupin asks about Holmes and Eric says he's there with other groups. Eric tells Lupin that everything is happening because of the warning he sent. Inside the mansion, Mr. Fogg addresses them all and says he believes Arsène Lupin is threatening as a monster. He says he got the information that Lupin has the help of Phantom. Dr. Watson and Holmes ask about what the penultimate night is. Passepartout says it's a rare diamond of 80 carat. He also tells them where the asset is located. Lupin and Phantom are seen discussing their mission and Master Fogg's security. Phantom asks Lupin about them. He replies that they are professionals who will do anything to protect their clients. Inside the mansion, Mr. Fogg takes them to see the diamond. They arrive at a door where Mr. Fogg calls the Chamber of Additional Crimes. He opens the locks to the Chamber of Additional Crimes and they all walk in. He unlocks the box and shows the diamond to them all. Mr. Fogg tells them about how he got the diamond from his German friend and how it takes him 10 years to unlock the box. Sherlock Holmes says he understands why Lupin wants the treasure because it is one of a kind and vows to protect it with everything. A man is sitting at a dining table with two other people as a man brings a newspaper to him. He reads the contents of the newspaper and says he has to go visit an old friend. Holmes talks about all the possible ways Lupin can use to evade the building and get away with the diamond. After looking at all the possibilities, they all left the Chambers of Additional Crimes. As they walk along the mansion, Suguru asks Aya if she has a plan and she affirms. It is a bright day. Suguru and Shizuku are sitting on a bench in a park. Suguru tries to grab something to eat. Shizuku says since they still have enough time to go, what would Aya like to do? She says she would like to visit Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. Dr. Watson walks into a building. Lupin disguised as Holmes asks Dr. Warson about his plans for tonight. Mycroft walks into the room and says the man sitting on the chair is not Holmes. Sherlock Holmes walks into the room and looks surprised at what is happening. Lupin takes off his mask after his cover has been blown. Suguru and Shizuku walk along the street. He says after coming to London, they have to visit some wax museum. Shizuku says the museum has a special exhibit called Chambers of Horrors that features a gruesome simulacra of humanity. Suguru tries to talk to Aya Rindo, but he doesn't get any response. He takes off the cloth covering the cage and discovers he has the wrong cage. Still, inside the building, Dr. Watson tells Lupin that what he's after is heavily carefully guided in an underground vault. Holmes says Lupin has no chance of stealing the treasure. Lupin asks Sherlock what the most defining feature of lock is. Lupin opens the window of the room and says he will see them later at night and falls off and lands on a chariot. While walking along the street looking for Aya, Annie sees Chuguru looking so sad and he asks her if she has seen Aya around. Inside Dr. Watson's office, they are talking about the driver of the chariot that took Lupin away. Dr. Watson says the driver is concealing the right side of his face and says it is Phantom of the Opera. Dr. Watson asks Sherlock Holmes why Lupin has taken time to come see him. He says it may be because they both share something in common. Mycroft tells Sherlock to be wary of the Royce agents. He says they both share the same goal of protecting the diamond. Mycroft says he's sure the Royce agents have other motives and warns Sherlock to be careful. On the street, a man throws a cage off and Aya falls off the cage. The twin agents drive past the street and bump into Aya Rindo. She asks for their help, but they have other plans. Shizuku is sitting next to Lupin as they drive around the city looking for Aya. Suddenly, Shizuku spots Aya in the back seat of the twins' chariot. She turns the vehicle and tells Phantom to chase after the twins. Chuguru and Annie found a cage on the street, but Aya Rindo is nowhere to be found. They both talk about where she could be. A vehicle moves past them at a high speed, and Chuguru sees Shizuku with Lupin in another vehicle. He spots Aya in the first vehicle and jumps on the roof to rush to her rescue. After he saves Aya, she can tell the man Shizuku has been riding with is Lupin. At Mr. Fogg's mansion, the butlers give a letter to Sherlock that Aya has decided to guide the rooftop. Mr. Fogg and the rest all converge at the chambers of additional crimes, waiting patiently for Lupin to appear. Chuguru is on the rooftop and suddenly they hear a strange sound. Mycroft receives information that someone has infiltrated the north building and a guide's uniform has been stolen. Inside the chamber of additional crimes, Sherlock takes out his gun, destroys all the locks, and says Lupin won't be able to get through to them. Mr. Fogg looks at the time and tells Holmes and Watson to keep their hands on the safe. Suddenly there is turbulence in the building, and water starts to enter the room through the rooftop. Mr. Holmes says Lupin got them because they won't be able to protect the box underwater. Back in the room, Reynolds asks a guard what the men in the basement want them to do. He says they want him to break through the wall of the basement. Fatima asks Reynolds what they need to do, and Reynolds asks her to go, and he will keep to the plan, so Fatima rushes out of the room. Down in the basement, they're all trying so hard to survive the water, and suddenly the water starts to go down. Fatima shoots the basement wall from outside, and the water starts flowing out. After the water has gone down, they discover the box is gone. Dr. Watson speaks angrily and says this is his 11th loss. He asks how Lupin gets the locks because they couldn't get out of the room, and the safe was underwater. Fatima says he may not have completely gotten out because the entrance door is blocked. They all move out to warm themselves. While cleaning their body, Holmes walks up to Mr. Ganimard and asks for his handcuff. He brings it out and turns Mr. Ganimard over and pins him to the ground, handcuffing him immediately. Then the man says that Mr. Ganimard is Arsène Lupin. Mr. Ganimard stands up with the handcuff and asks how he figured out about him because his disguise is perfect. He replies that his footsteps were light when he crossed the bridge and tells them all of Mr. Ganimard's secret plans of how he disguises himself as a thief. Mr. Ganimard stands up and removes his disguise, and they all look so surprised to see Lupin. Holmes tells him that he may have taken the safe, but not the diamond. He also says that one of Mr. Fogg's handmaids delivered it to Baker Street in the afternoon, so the diamond is back at Baker Street, and reveals that all that is in the vault is his tobacco box. Upon hearing that, Lupin drops a smoke grenade and runs away with the diamond. The whole mansion turns into chaos as they continue to find Lupin. He disguises himself as one of the guards and escapes from the mansion. Arsène Lupin is a great thief in France, but in Japan, they have Nezumi Kozo, Jinai Kosaki, and the most famous of all, Goemon Ishikawa. There's this story about how Goemon Ishikawa was captured in Kyoto's Fushimi Castle and sentenced to be boiled to death in a cauldron. That's all people ever talked about, which was no fun for his lackeys. So they decide to steal every single pot and cauldron throughout Edo, causing all kinds of trouble. Lupin walks up to Phantom and shows him the diamond together with the safe. As they were about to open the safe, Chuguru hit them in the face from the sky. He flew down and opened the safe himself. It's Aya inside the safe. She introduces herself as a detective who specializes in monster, which is why she asks Chuguru to follow him and lose on purpose, and to also put her in the safe instead of the diamond. Aya asks him if he can prevail against Chuguru and Shizuku. He says that he has Phantom of the Opera on his side. As he turns back, he discovers the Phantom has disappeared. As Lupin prepares to fight Chuguru, Reynolds appears and says he is going to take them all out with one strike each. Suddenly there is a sound of turbulence silence and a voice says the bridge has broken. Chuguru says without the bridge they won't be able to leave. A guard holds a lamp and tries to warn the rest that there are multiple intruders, but he gets killed. A man walking with a black cane asks his crew if they're ready because the night has just started for them. The man says ambushing Lupin will be easy since they have already gotten rid of the bridge. He says Lupin might not hold the diamond because there is the probability that there might be a scramble within the race. They split around the mansion looking for Lupin. Dr. Watson and Holmes find the box with Aya Rinden in it. Holmes tells her that Lupin is not the problem right now, but the new set of intruders. Reynolds attacks Lupin and Chuguru, but they both evade his attack, and Chuguru kicks Reynolds in the back. He gets angry and runs after Chuguru. Chuguru tells him that Lupin is running away with the diamond. Reynolds kicks a flower vase at Lupin and he falls. Outside the mansion, Lupin, Chuguru, and Reynolds continue to fight for the diamond. Reynolds, however, goes overboard with his sword skill, cutting down a pillar. As the fight continues, the diamond is kicked into a building, so the men head there. Inside the building, Lupin asks Chuguru that they form a truce so that they can take down Reynolds. The left-handed swordsman casually walks in, complaining that the diamond has been stained, and Chuguru asks him why his department hates monsters so much. Reynolds says that it's just some of them, but they generally do not enjoy fighting off creatures like him. As the injured Oni halfling stalls for time, Reynolds walks closer to him, but he is then smitten by Lupin. The trickster then tells Chuguru not to worry, since an attack like that isn't enough to kill him. In another place, Fatima tries tracking the Phantom of the Opera, wondering why she cannot hear his footsteps. All of a sudden, she falls through the vent and lands in a room. The Phantom then explains that he cannot be beaten in the realm of sounds. After all, he lived in an opera house. As for Shizuku, she fights the red-haired vampire woman. In the process, the vampire's blood spills on her, and it ends up affecting her battle prowess due to the high concentration of aphrodisiac in the blood. Seizing that opportunity, the vampire decides to hold the maid by the hand and explain how her touch numbs people. Sherlock Holmes and Watson empty their guns while trying to defeat one of the tricksters that excels in setting people ablaze. The two detectives confirm that they are out of bullets while panting heavily. Watson asks Sherlock Holmes if he has a plan, and the genius detective says that he'll use Baritsu. The trickster, who completely has the two detectives under his wraps, is distracted by Aya, who asks that they discuss. In the process, the girl in a birdcage nearly learns that the man's group might know the whereabouts of her body. They are immediately interrupted by Holmes, who throws a poisonous dart in the face of the goatee magician. He then watches as the man struggles to continue standing. Out of nowhere, an explosion interrupts them, and as they look toward the source, Holmes spots a familiar face which he calls Moriarty. Coincidentally, he happens to fit the descriptions he gave Chuguru when they first met. As for Fatima, she lands near the injured Reynolds and worriedly asks him if he's alright. The adamant swordsman tells her to be more concerned about the diamond, which is no longer with him. The next thing that happens is that a red-haired man jumps in through the window and goes for the diamond. The bloodlust emanating from him is so much that all of them pause for a bit before realizing what's going on. Immediately, Fatima tries stopping him, but he slashes her to bits with just his hand. Reynolds then tries to fight the red-haired, but he is sent crashing violently to a nearby wall. Upon seeing the one-sided beatdown, Lupin advises Chuguru to flee. Moriarty converses with Aya and Holmes, and the good guys ask to know if Moriarty is trying to rebuild his criminal organization, but the old man says that he has figured out how to improve it. He tells them that he got inspired by his apprentice, Jack the Ripper. Jogging up Holmes's memory of the crime Jack pulled off 11 years ago, Moriarty explains that Jack has gotten interested in crossing humans and Oni through transplant. Back to Chuguru and the redhead, who introduces himself as Jack. The men fight each other, and in the process, Chuguru uses Fatima's heart to evade an attack coming from the Ripper. The men stare at each other, wondering if they've met before. Moriarty continues his explanation, stating that he and Jack once went to Japan to capture Onis, and they transplanted the Oni cells on human subjects. He noticed that the Oni cells in the subjects were too much, hence resulting in their death, so Moriarty gave Jack a little dose. He admits to adding Aya's immortal cell and a vampire named Von Klatka's cell into Jack, transforming him to be the ultimate monster. Jack continues fighting Chuguru and overpowers him by a margin. After flinging the blue-haired man away, he notices his wound does not heal, so he puts 2 and 2 and concludes Chuguru to be the test subject that escaped after surgery, calling Chuguru number 9. Finally, Chuguru recognizes Jack and says he has been chasing after him and Moriarty. Jack then asks him why, but the unserious man jokes at the last minute, so Jack walks out of the building while holding a flare which he shoots into the sky. Meanwhile, Shizuku struggles with the vampire and manages to stab her. Pissed, the vampire prepares to attack the maid, but as soon as she sees the flare, she hurriedly leaves. Moriarty tells his party members, Victor and Alistair, to leave since Jack's flare has been shot, indicating that he had gotten the diamond. Angrily, Holmes declares that he'll tear down the organization. Before Moriarty takes his leave, he tells them that the name of his organization is Banquet. Suguru and the detectives gather in a room, and Shizuku struggles to meet them. Holmes then informs the party that Lupin must have escaped through the waterway. As the party speaks of the diamond being missing, Suguru says he has an announcement for them. Meanwhile, the banquet gathers and the members have a toast. Moriarty then instructs Jack to show them the diamond, and as soon as he checks his pocket, he sees that it's missing. At Holmes's base, Suguru reveals the diamond to them and hands it over to Mr. Fogg. The old man wonders why the gem caused them much trouble, but Holmes says that they should crack the code engraved on it. Without wasting time, Aya recites the words written on it and informs them that she has cracked the code. Moments later, the party stands outside and Aya instructs Chuguru to place the gem under a lamppost. As soon as he does that, the word Fangsanavald appears in the gem. It is a place of werewolves. 8 years ago, in a dark forest, a girl named Yuta was hunted alongside her werewolf mom by humans. After managing to get to a house, the mother wolf explains to her daughter that humans are scared of them and that is why they hunt them. Within minutes, the house is set ablaze and the wolf is left to act as a meat shield for its child. Amidst the flames, the house collapses, revealing the werewolf. Chuguru and his group walk in the mountains. He starts acting like an entertainer as he wonders how they are going to meet with the werewolves. Aya then tells him that she met with one 150 years ago. It happened when all the monsters were gathered, and it was then she learnt of it. Aya notes that they are so strong that they are bullet resistant. Chuguru then wonders if they have a weakness, and Aya believes that dog weaknesses will work for them. Not too far from them, they spot a man calling for Louise. He spots them, and they ask him if he knows Heulendorf. The man in turn tells them it is his village. As soon as he sees the two Asians in a cage, he concludes that they are the detectives who specialize in monsters. He then shortens the distance between them and introduces himself as Heinemann, a doctor. He says a girl in their village had been kidnapped by a werewolf. The party is finally led by Heinemann to the village. There they see the hostile villagers glaring at them. Heinemann apologizes for his fellow villagers' attitude, but Aya asks him to explain what caused the disappearance. The doctor then explains that over a year ago, the mayor's granddaughter disappeared after going to fetch some water. Her body was found messy, and some marks indicated the work of a werewolf. 4 months later, the woodcutter's daughter was found in such a crazy state. After about another 4 months, there was another victim. Curiously, Aya asks to confirm if the victims were only girls, and the man confirms them to be. He then tells them that his daughter Louise was taken the night before. Heinemann says that they managed to handle a werewolf 8 years ago before it could harm anybody. The doctor leads them to the church, where two men are quarreling over the case. He introduces the detectives to them, and after Chuguru's embarrassing introduction, the people learn about Aya. One of the men prepares to shoot her, but she logically talks him out of it, saying that she'll help them solve the case. The party starts by visiting Louise's room. This is where they learn that the child is frail. After examining the room, which is scattered, they see paw prints on the ground up to the broken window. Aya immediately gives the order to fetch some tools while she questions the grieving family on what they did the previous night. The mother said that she put her daughter's blanket over her and shut the curtains. She pointed to the two windows in the room, claiming one to be locked while the broken one to be a fixed window that wasn't made to open in the first place. Aya asks Chuguru to take her to the broken window to help her examine. As soon as he does as he is told, she sees the broken shard outside. As for Shizuku, she goes to the rooftop based on Aya's orders and confirms that there are no sooty footprints around the place. The conclusion is that only the window was used to escape. Aya then orders Shizuku to drop the item he asked her to bring through the hole. The item happens to be Chuguru's pillow. As soon as the object lands, it is covered in dust. The doctor walks in while holding two objects covered in bite marks, and the party examines it. Aya then asks Louise's parents if their daughter does go out often, but they say only a few times. Even in those times, they would push the child's wheelchair. Aya then corrects the father that the culprit made everything in the room seem insane, but he is very sane. Imehi explains better by saying that there weren't traces of blood outside the bed and on the window, which meant that the culprit came with a cloth to wrap the girl and escape. Upon hearing Aya, Louise's father wails. Aya then spots the shed door to be broken, and when she asks, Louise's father nonchalantly explains that it was done by a thief who broke in to steal some guns. The detective party then asks if the case is related since it was exactly a year ago that the werewolf incident started. The man wholeheartedly wholeheartedly refuses the idea, saying that no werewolf can operate a gun. Aya then tells her party that they'll be visiting the mayor of the village. The party leaves the house, and when Louise's father asks about the possibility of his daughter being alive, Aya tells him that based on her own point of view, he won't see her again. After leaving the victim's house, Shuguru asks Aya if she knows who the culprit is, and she says she has them by the tail. In the mayor's room, the man speaks about how the werewolves have climbed the waterfall to eat them whenever they want. He then asks the party to help find the werewolf. Aya asks the man where the wolves live, and the mayor says they live in Wolfenhell, a village hidden at the waterfall's base. From the conversation, the mayor learns the party is after the people coming after the werewolves. He sees they have the black diamond but says he won't help them get to the werewolf village. Aya then strikes a deal with him that she'll get the culprit within 2 days, and if she succeeds, he'll show them how to get to the werewolf village. At Schnetar Station, 2 exterminators alight from a train and walk past a man. Aya starts by asking the mayor if he's aware that the werewolf victims are females, and the man replies maybe the culprit likes young women. Aya disagrees with the notion because the incidents are too systematic. She believes that the culprit may have a motive other than satisfying their hunger. She then asks her final question, which is if he believes that the culprit is from their village. The mayor does not agree. Instead, he says that werewolves produce their kind and the villagers are all humans. Normally, the set of people to suspect are foreigners. The mayor says he tested the foreigners and none of them reacted, so he believes the werewolves aren't among them. The mayor says that the werewolves' weapon is their blood. The creatures are careful about who breeds with whom in pursuit of producing the strongest child. The mayor notes that silver and holy water don't work on the latest generation of werewolves. Shuguru immediately teases Shizuku since he learns that silver doesn't work on them. The old man then says that there's a way to defeat the monsters by going after them in their human form. He advises that they target their eyes or mouth or set them on fire, although it's quite possible that flames won't work on the current werewolf. The old man who is on his bed wonders what will happen once a Kindsführer is born. He explains the term to be the ultimate werewolf that results from all their selective breeding. Aya asks him to confirm if he has seen silver not working on a werewolf before, and he affirms. He says that 8 years ago, werewolves disguised as mother and daughter infiltrated their village, but thanks to Louise, they were spotted. That's why if they cannot recover Louise, he doesn't know what will happen to them without the child. The detectives visit the 3 foreigners in their village. They start with Knut, who seemed the most suspicious out of the 3. In his home, Knut tells them of how he came across an injured woman in the forest and concluded that she must have had an affair or been chased from her previous place of work. He took her in and raised her and her baby until the child was 8 years old. Thanks to Louise, the family was discovered and burnt to crisp. Knut was left to take down their bones, and he claimed to have done his job. He says Heinemann isn't the culprit either. The second foreigner they go to is an artist who lives on the outskirts of the village. She moved there 5 years ago and claims to come from a family of artists. Looking around the artist's room, Aya sees the portraits of girls, so she asks the artist if she likes drawing girls. The artist then explains the drawings to be portraits asked by the deceased girl's parents to make. After Alma, the artist, talks about spotting a wolf with golden fur coming from the waterfall, Aya decides to burst her bubble by saying she has seen through 2 of her statements to be lies. She tells Alma that she didn't come from art lineage because the way she's currently holding the charcoal being used to shade isn't like professionals. With that, Aya concludes the artist to be self-taught. Alma confesses to having been abandoned by her parents when she was little. She stops what she is sketching and shows the final product to Aya, and it has the detective wowed. Aya and her party then leave Alma's home and check out the waterfall. After that, they meet with Heinemann at his house to continue their work. Aya asks the doctor if there was ever a case that Louise went out by herself. The man thinks for a while and then recalls an incident where Louise's parents looked for their daughter and found her wheelchair stuck in the mud outside. The girl was found dirty, and the parents learned that their child was fascinated by Alma's painting. The doctor leaves for the door, and within moments the 2 exterminators enter the room. Upon sighting the cage user, a quick fight happens, having Chuguru and one of the exterminators in a stalemate. The bigger person of the 2 apologizes to Heinemann for having his home messy. The smaller one, who is deadlocked to Chuguru, introduces herself as Alice Rapidshot, while the buff man calls himself Kyle Chaintail. Alice, who wants to end her foes, asks her partner so that they can get down to business, but Team Aya informs her that they are currently on a mission, and they made a deal with the mayor to teach them how to use the gem after they've solved his case. The exterminators are then told of the murder mysteries happening in the village, and Aya says she wants to solve the case since she's a detective. She then asks that they strike a deal. Kyle, upon hearing her, tells Alice that they retreat. After managing to convince the hot-tempered Agent 3, She vows to shoot Aya dead. Aya laughs at her, calling it the joke of the century. Later that night, Aya helps Chuguru medically to sustain his life, but Shizuku annoyingly interrupts them. The detective then concludes to have found the culprit. Not too far away, they hear the sounds of the villagers, so they head there. Outside Alma's home, the villagers surround the place while holding torches and demanding an answer from the artist. The artist then tells them to stay back as she struggles to maintain her sanity. Louise's father then asks about his daughter, but the artist says she's had her for a snack. Alma finally loses control and transforms into a werewolf before coming out of her house. Alice, who happens to be at the scene, immediately shoots the werewolf with a silver bullet, but it has no effect. Immediately, the werewolf runs into the woods. Chuguru follows the creature while holding Aya, and then tells her that she must have gained weight, which truly seems strange. They get to the open close to the waterfall, and Shizuku shoots the beast, but it doesn't have any effect. In turn, Chuguru gives her Aya to hold, while he prepares to battle the werewolf. Within seconds, the fight kicks off, and Chuguru isn't able to keep up with the creature in terms of speed. When the wolf finally bites him, he lifts the mutt and flings it, showcasing that they are equal in strength. Immediately, Chuguru tells Shizuku to aim for the creature's eyes, and she charges at it with her weapon. Unfortunately for her, the werewolf evades her shot and dashes to where Aya is. It then tosses the cage into the waterfall, but Shizuku rushes just in time to save her mistress. In the process, she falls into the water while Chuguru catches Aya.